Welcome to another episode of All Things Recruiting. I am so excited, Olenka, to have you on the show. So,
Thank you
welcome
for
and
having
thank you
me.
so much. Yes, for joining me. And you and I, we have been friends. I was thinking before I hit record and before we got on. I mean, it's been a number of years.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't how many years? I probably like
At
six
least
or
five. Yeah, I was
seven.
gonna say at least six for sure. Yeah, if not longer,
I
definitely.
know. Yeah. So we met through a mutual friend. And in just a second, Lenka, I'm going to let you tell the listeners a little bit about you because there's so much. And oh my gosh, so much. But I think that you can really detail it better than me. So I'm going to let you do that in just a minute. But as I was mentioning, like we met through a mutual friend. And
Mhm.
then you actually helped me with my business and did coaching for me a couple years ago, and it was so beneficial. So when
Yeah.
I was thinking about who I wanted to have on the podcast, I thought you are a perfect person, and we're going to talk all about automation and AI and all the things that can really help our listeners in their business.
Yeah.
Not only their recruiting business, but also just business in general.
Mhm.
So, yes, please, Alenka, tell the listeners a little bit about you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. Yes, it's been a minute. We've seen each other's iterations of each other's businesses, which I love, right? Like we're growing parallel to each other, which is awesome. My name is Olenka Cullinan. I am a CEO of a company called iStartFirst, which was really designed initially to support female founders and female business owners. But now I have expanded to a big corp, so I work co-ed. But my primary purpose is still for sure female business owners, because I do believe that women do business completely differently and I support them with scale and operation. The biggest thing I focus on is how do we grow our business, but also gain our time back, because you and I both know, as busy entrepreneurs, as busy female entrepreneurs, life can get away from you really fast. And if you get in kind of trenches with your business and you are just there, sometimes it's really hard and you look up and years went by and kids have grown and life have developed. So yeah, I'm really, really focused on scale operation. And specifically, I do love the topic of automation because I genuinely believe, and I talk about it all the time, that automation and systems is what gives you really that ticket to freedom.
Yes, and we all need that. It's funny, like you were mentioning children. And I was thinking the other day when my kids were small, I was managing my company and I seemed to be just as productive, back then as I am now. But now my kids are older, they're out
Mhm.
of the house. I'm like, why? How did I do it all? Like looking back,
Right.
like, how did I make that happen when I had small children? Because I still feel like I run out of time, even
Absolutely.
now. So,
Yes, no, absolutely. And I
uh,
think so many people can relate, and that's obviously both men and women, right? If we are around kids, especially younger kids, we do have to be even more diligent and disciplined about prioritizing our time, because they always need something and your business always needs something. There's never a shortage of things to do as a business owner, right? Yeah.
totally. Right. I always say my business is like my third child, you know.
Yeah.
So
I, yeah.
when we're thinking about it, because I know when you and I, first started talking, you're all about time efficiency, creating systems and automation and AI we'll get into in a
Mhm.
little bit. But I think just like creating those systems for business owners,
Mhm.
sometimes I feel like business owners, you get into a habit of the way that you do things daily and you don't even know, okay, what's like the first step? Like, how do I create a system for something in general in my business? Do you have anything to help people that are either just starting out or they're in that habit of like, how do I change when I'm so used to doing things the same way?
Right. And change is never easy. You and I both know that. If change was easy, we would all be in Bali with an umbrella drink right now.
Yeah.
But here we are. Yes, change can be difficult. And especially as you mentioned, when you are in that zone and you kind of just do things like that old saying, don't fix it unless it's broken. But
Yes.
I always invite business owners to look at where do you spend the most time, right? Like focus on those areas first and see how you can gain some of that time back. because there are a couple of things that fit into here, and you and I talked about it a few times. One, it's truly optimizing your life, right? Because if you're spending your time on $2 tasks, it's going to become really difficult to grow your business and attract those high level clients, high paying clients, high level options for your services and products. So I always say, if you're stuck in $2 tasks, you're stuck in those trenches, you don't have time for $10,000 opportunities. So my first invitation, if you're just starting out, look at the places in your business where you spend the most time and start systematizing those areas first to really shorten your time. Can I make this in 3 emails? Can I organize this in 2 steps? Can we cut out 1 step from the sales process? The new kind of normal right now is, I hear this often, people say 1 click less. What can we do in 1 less click that is going to buy us some time back? So that would be my suggestion for everyone. And you don't have to go spend money on all the expensive. Of course, there are lots of tools to build systems, but you can start with something that's easy. It's Google Sheets and Excel spreadsheets, but really start tracking where you spend your time daily.
That's a good point. Yeah. So, I mean, something even really, really small. Like, I love that you said 1 click, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that, yeah, sometimes we can look at our business and maybe we've been doing something the same way for a really long time. And if you go back and look at it and go, what can I eliminate and
Mm-hmm.
still have either the same effect or sometimes even a better effect? And if
True.
you just get that mindset going with everything that you do, are there certain things that you think would be helpful? Like, I know I've done the exercise where I just write down like everything that I'm doing every 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, what did I do this past 15 minutes? Is there anything that you can suggest like that, or something, better than that?
Yes, I love that you brought this up. I don't care if you've been in business a day, a year, or 10 years, recommend that to even CEOs of some of my billion-dollar companies. I recommend that for a day or 2 or 3, you treat yourself as a time employee, as a clock-in employee, and you literally use a timesheet, just like you said, because most of the time we so overestimate what we can do in a week, and then we so underestimate what we can do in a day. And as always, business owners, we're so attached to things, so we argue, but it was only a couple minutes, it's only 10 minutes, I only took this call 5 minutes, so I only went on social for 10. But if you add up all those 5s and 10s, you'll be shocked to see how much time you're actually wasting. Or like you said, you can go back on and actually eliminate the steps in. So yes, one would be doing the time card exercise and basically treating yourself as a paid employee, and you will see you are not a very good employee most of the time.
Yeah.
And then the next piece I would say is taking that time and really start optimizing your calendar for non-negotiables. So I pick 3 non-negotiables daily that I put on my calendar. I actually schedule them out for the whole week, but every day I do 3 things that are non-negotiable, depending on what stage in your business it is, right? If you're in growth stage, your non-negotiable should probably be sales and outreach. If you are in your kind of more solid stage, then maybe it's writing standard operating procedures and processes so you can outsource more things. If you are more in the kind of, winding down, if you will, deciding what you're going to go, and if it's a sales or some kind of transfer of your business, then you can look at things like, where can we lean things out, when we can make processes better. But so I would create 3 non-negotiables for your business that you do absolutely daily, and you do not go to bed until you cross those off. So my suggestion, do those first, right? It's like eat that frog. Do
Hmm.
things you don't like first, and then the rest of the day is a breeze.
Right. Because I think we can make excuses. And so, right. But yeah, I do the same thing. I'm like, okay, before I go to sleep tonight, and I get tired around 9 o'clock. So I know
Yeah.
if I want to go to sleep on time, I need to get those things done. And you just make that commitment with yourself. Like, I am not going to sleep until I do, A, B, and C.
Mhm.
And sometimes I'll talk to friends and they'll be saying, this is like for working out, just to use that as an example. People are like, oh, I don't have time to go work out. And
Mhm.
it's like, well, I always attribute it to like, well, do you have time to brush your teeth? Like there's
Right.
certain things that you just do and you find the time, right? You don't go, oh, I didn't have time to brush my teeth, so I just didn't do it. Right. So those three priorities that you
Yeah.
just mentioned should be like brushing your teeth. Like I don't not have time to do those things because those are going to be what pushes my business forward.
Yeah,
So,
I love that you said that. And also, I would add one more thing here is also don't get hung up on all or nothing, right? So if you failed with your three priorities today, that doesn't mean that now you're depressed for the rest of the week. And tomorrow comes and you're like, well, I already failed yesterday. It's similar to, like you said, with workout, right? If I
yeah,
don't work out one day, tomorrow is a brand new day. So you start it as such. You don't attribute bad Monday to now on a Friday, you are ordering pizza and
right.
out off your calendar. So it's
Right.
different in business, right? If you fail your priorities, and I always tell that, and I feel like I see this a lot with newer kind of business owners. They really get kind of sometimes attached to that all or nothing mentality. Don't treat it as such. Treat every day as it's a brand new day in your business. And even if you failed on all three priorities yesterday, just start on them the next day.
Right. Yeah. And I always try to practice like it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to
Mm-hmm.
be good enough. So
Yeah.
even if you have to it, at least that's better than not doing it at all.
Sure. Oh,
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So, as far as automation, when we were talking about some things that you could share with our listeners, we talked about like automation and AI. And as recruiters, we hear that all the time, like all the tools and all the tactical things. But there's also a lot of things just from like a bigger picture
Yeah.
overview, like general in business, because a lot of our listeners are either owning their own recruiting firm or they want to.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some things? Because it sounds like you have dived into this over the past year or two or several to talk about like what should business owners start to be thinking about when it comes to automation and specifically AI?
Mm-hmm. Well, a couple things. One, it's not going away, right? So we might as well learn it. It's kind of like I remember I was tooth and nail fighting my marketing team on Instagram, and they're like, Olenka, it's going to be around for a long time. So you might as well dive in and just learn about it. And that's how I started my account. And now it's become one of my primary sources of lead generation, right? So, but I was so against it. So I would say the first invitation is obviously keep an open mind because it is developing, it's coming. You can use it to your comfort level. You can kind of dive in into special areas. With automation, I treat every business in a very simple way. I just tell people if you do something more than 5 times, and again, it's whether you've been in business a day or 10 years, if you do something in your business daily or weekly more than 5 times, you should probably automate that process. And there are so many great ways to do it. One exercise I do with a lot of business owners, we literally lay out their business. Let's say it's their customer journey or their marketing funnel or their sales funnel. We'll lay it out all on sticky notes first to see what steps are present. And then we essentially see how can we automate it from the first time you heard about me. So for a recruiter, it could be something from the first time, I went and researched so and so, how would they find me, how they would drop into my funnel. But most importantly, I'm sure you guys have candidates that don't always make it with the very first round, or you have companies that may kind of dabbled into learning about you and then they don't come, they maybe didn't pull the trigger yet. So everybody should end up on your what I call spokes wheel, right? Like once they're in your business aura, they should never leave. They should always have some kind of presence from you. And so what we do with automation, we literally lay out all the processes on a piece of sticky notes, like on multiple sticky notes first. And then we see how we can create connections between all these pieces where all of it operates as a machine. So you don't have to repeatedly send follow-ups emails. Maybe if they get on your calendar, there's automatically reminders going on from those reminders that get dropped into some kind of newsletter campaign where now you're on their top of mind, right? So we want to automate everything that you do daily. That would be my first suggestion. So again, if you do it more than 5 times, automate, find a system and automate. And then second of all, AI is where it comes in handy because there are obviously, I have a firm right now, it's a client of mine, and they're literally testing AI answering phones. Her name is Anna, and she's fabulous. Anna can hold 10
Wow.
calls at a time right now. She sounds exactly like the most amazing receptionist you've ever met. So we're going to start testing her on messages. We just have been testing her on phone calls. The next thing, she's going to go into the text messaging funnel, and we're going to test her there, right? Whether you like it or not, it doesn't mean Anna is going to take over anybody in that law firm because she does not have a legal degree, nor is she authorized. But this basic tasks of the first introductory calls, or maybe it's the first outreach where it's pretty much everybody writes 20 of the same messages. Hi, my name is so and so, and I'm a recruiter. This type of scenario can absolutely be done by AI. AI is great for building out your data. AI is great for doing like a generic, big, wide net outreach to potential companies you want to recruit for, or maybe searching for candidates, because there's so many parameters you can create. And what I do tell people too is don't worry about AI in the job market, because it's not taking away your job. It's just reshaping some of the job market to take away the basic tasks that we all essentially struggle with, kind of.
Hmm. Right. And I think that the benefit and the advantage is to know how to use it, not only for your business, like what we're talking about, but in your business as well. So
Mhm.
there's like two different sides of it, like the overall business and
Right.
then the actual like tactical things like you were talking about, which
100%. Well, and it's just like, with ChatGPT, if you're not using ChatGPT to write everything in your business, like what are you even doing? You know,
yeah,
if you
yeah.
haven't created custom ChatGPT, this is one thing you should learn, because I'm all about editing it and making it your personal, like your own. But the basics of it should absolutely be used by you. But also, like you said, having that big picture in mind on what AI can do for your business, again, in terms of scalability, in terms of how quickly you can move through some of the initial steps in your processes, you can't deny what an amazing ROI it brings to any business.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking as we're talking, because for recruiters, we're always talking about like the initial outreach. There's a
Mhm.
lot of AI tools that, can do that. There's sourcing. But I think for recruiters, maybe one area that's missed is like what you were just talking about. Like once they come into your sphere,
Mhm.
then, doing that routine follow up, whether it's automation or using AI technology to keep in touch with those people that you
Absolutely.
already interviewed, they're already in your database, um,
Mhm.
et cetera. I think that's super powerful.
Right. And I think honestly, like follow up is sort of a lot of times, I love that you brought it up. I feel that it's often overlooked in a lot of businesses, right? Because we always have that such like forward driving mentality, like we need more outreach, we need the growth, we're always looking forward, that we sometimes forget how much value comes from people who are already there. Like
Hmm.
once we earn their trust and we've brought them in, if you do follow up well, you will have referral sources endlessly. You will have, connections in the kind of the sphere of influence that's growing forever. So
Hmm.
that those follow up are extremely beneficial.
Yeah. Are there some things that you can think of with that? Because I know we do like emails, we'll send like a newsletter or we'll send a campaign of emails, but it's usually for something very specific, like a
Mhm.
role that we're working on, and not so much just like keeping in touch
Yeah.
with that candidate pool. Is there
Mhm.
anything that you've seen that your clients have utilized, maybe that recruiters can start to incorporate for like that continual kind of touch point?
Mhm. I mean, referrals, I do that. Pretty much make all my clients create referral campaigns with very direct, I would say, ask for help. I have a lot of my clients who part of their email campaigns 4 times a year is specific ask for referrals and who they're looking for and who their ideal clients are. And if they know, because here's what you also need to realize, your pool of candidate most of the time is connected to a pool of companies, right? So as a recruiter, you definitely want amazing companies to work with. And just because that particular candidate did not work out with that company could still be an amazing candidate for you. So one of the things I think could be implemented for any recruiter is that part of your outreach to your pool of candidates can also be asking them for referral and introductions to the companies that they know that could be a great client source for you. And a lot of times, I talk a lot, obviously, about the energy exchange and the win-win. So some of the outreach could be where you create not just check in and looking for particular roles, but it's also like tips, this is what's happening in the market. This is the industries that are hiring. These are the 5 companies, because like we do quite a bit, I have a marketing partnership and we do a lot of like kind of trends watching. And I know like one of the big trends on TikTok right now, whether you're there or not, it kind of affects everybody. A lot of trends now, they love seeing like what companies are hiring, what big companies are hiring, or like top 10 companies to work for. So I think creating these type of check-ins where they kind of get value from what they're searching for, but also then in return, you ask them for value and saying, do you know any CEOs, CFOs, chief operation of something that could be a potential client for us? And you can create a pretty robust referral campaign from that as well as a recruiter, I would think.
That is, yeah. Oh, that's a good nugget. Definitely all of our listeners write that down because I think that's
Yeah.
something that's overlooked, especially if you are sending it to your candidates, making sure that you're adding value, but then asking referral to companies. I don't think a lot of us are doing that. We usually will say, like, we're working on a role. Do you know anyone, that you could think
Mhm.
of that would either be interested in this role or good for this role? But we're not doing that. Do you have any companies, like the company
Yeah.
that you're in or the company that you just
Mhm.
left,
Yeah. Well, because the reason I brought it up, one, not all
Yeah,
of them leave on bad terms, right? You and I both
right.
know that sometimes it just
Yeah,
doesn't work out. And I have a CPA firm that actually started doing it this year, and they got 3 amazing clients from their candidate source because they referred them to those clients. And one of them, like, is an amazing firm in California. It's an amazing company in California that they would
yeah,
probably would never even known because they're here in Arizona. And it's just so happened that one of the potential candidates that they were going to bring on as a team member knew his, I believe it's his brother who was married to the CEO of the company. And so they made an introduction. It was like a super seamless transition, and they were mind blown what an incredibly lucrative source it was. And it was literally kind of in front of them, right? And we don't always think that way. Yeah.
yeah. I love that. That is so good. And you said something too. You were talking about like AI won't replace
Mhm.
people. I mean, I think, do you feel like it will replace some jobs? Like, oh,
Some basic potentially, but again, right? Not every industry, some industries are just super regulated, right? Like if you take finance, they have to be very cautious in how they do the outreach because they're so regulated by federal rules. I do think AI will probably eventually eliminate like a good portion of really, really basic tasks that humans are doing. But even with basic tasks, I don't know if it's going to eliminate all of them because again, there will be industries that will always need that human touch. But yes, I think what will primarily happen, and it's sort of happening already, it's basically reshaping the job market where we, like on the lower level admin positions, people need to go and learn more on how AI works. I don't know if you saw that. There is an agency, I want to say they're in New York, but don't quote me on that. They just did a campaign for like a trial campaign just for fun, if you will, for
yeah,
Adidas. And it was completely shot by AI. Actors was AI generated. So there was nothing human about it, but it looked fabulous. And what they said, don't get mad on AI because one, we just wanted to try this campaign and see if it actually works. And it looked incredible. But they said, just think of the fact that even if we eliminated the humans in this campaign, we had to hire a whole army of editors, people who understand how that AI computer generation works, people who know how to code. So all we did is basically replace the job market we would hire for this ad with a different job market where we had to hire the editors, the people who, like anybody who works with AI, essentially, we still had to hire a whole army of humans. They just have a different skill set. And I
right.
really liked how they explained that.
Yeah, that's so good. Right. As long as I think that people lean into AI, use it, and also know just as it grows, like how to utilize it in their
Right.
work, then
Mhm.
there's going to be a huge opportunity. And I'm sure we're going to see this. I'm sure a lot of recruiters that are listening have seen some of the job openings that we have. I haven't seen it so much as of yet, where our clients, we do tech, HR, and finance. And it's interesting as I'm saying this, I haven't seen that from our clients saying, I need someone with AI skills yet.
Mhm.
But I bet I will, by
Mhm.
the end of this year, where they're going to require that from some of
Yeah.
their workforce. So it'll be interesting to see
Yeah, for sure.
how
And I do
that plays
think
out.
kind of on a mass market, to your point, it's a little bit delayed, right? There's kind of a lot of experimental, if you will, that's happening with AI right now. But I
Mhm.
do feel, I think you're spot on. I think it's going to probably take about 12 to somewhere 15, 18 months for the mass market to catch up, where they will require the skill set more so than now, where it's more like if you have it, it's a bonus.
Mhm. Yeah. What are you doing for your clients? Tell me a little bit, because I know that you're doing one-on-one coaching, and then you also
So,
have a business academy for female entrepreneurs, right?
yes, yes. So yes, I essentially work with founders with one-on-one coaching, primarily female founders, but then I do some C-suite work on the big corp side, specifically for scale and operations, where I bring the systems, the AI, the automation. That's kind of my secret sauce, if you will, is always how can we streamline everything and save you time and money ultimately. And then for the Female Entrepreneur Academy, the FBA, yeah, I love the program. It's a 6-month academy where we essentially revamp women's female entrepreneurs business. We take you from where you are, and the goal is to get you to the next level in 6 months, because it's essentially 6 modules, which take them from everything from mindset to marketing to law to taxes to operations to systems. So we take every month is spent on rebuilding a part of your business that by the time you walk away, not only you've increased your revenue, but you actually have a business that sort of can operate without you. With automation, I saw a quote the other day that I've been like relentlessly preaching to female business owners, and especially inside the FBA. I say, if I take away your phone and your computer for a few days and stop you from communicating to your team, how long can your business run without you?
Love that. That's kind of scary.
Yes.
It's
Everybody take a
it's
deep breath.
scary. I
Just
know.
kidding.
Gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. It's like the goal is to have that self-driving business so you can step away. Because I talk to so many entrepreneurs where they're like, I'm in business for myself, but I can't take a day off, or I can't go on vacation.
Right.
So I think it's really important to focus on that. And even like a lot of the listeners are recruiters, they're like in their day to day, they're definitely like working in their business and trying to spend more time working on it. So
Right.
it's imperative to take that time, no matter how difficult it might seem. Like we were talking about scheduling and
Yeah.
blocking that time so that you can, even if it's a small percentage, start to work on these processes and automations and things that will eventually get you so you're working more on your business and
Mhm.
actually can step away from it too.
Right. Right.
So
Well, and you and I both know, right? It's that whatever you are not willing to put up front, that time that you're so attached to is ultimately is going to catch up with you later. So if you're willing to spend 3 hours on automation this week, that's 3 hours you'll save, or probably more, probably like 20 hours you'll save on the back end once you have it in place. But if you're not willing to disattach yourself from that, then eventually when you're growing and your business starts growing faster, that's why I feel so many business owners end up in burnout, because I meet them all the time. They're like, Olenka, I want to grow my business. I want to scale more. I want to bring on new clients, but I'm pretty much tapped out at capacity because I'm doing so much admin work. I'm doing so much back end work, so much outreach. And so this is that balance that you have to commit to. And I love that you said that. Even if you schedule a few hours every week to pull yourself out of the trenches, to work on the systems and automation, that to me is so important, because that's what's going to allow you to scale and grow your business bigger.
absolutely. Yeah. And even if it's that your secret sauce and you love working in it, you still need to take that time and
Mhm.
go
For
on
sure.
it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%.
Now, why do you focus just on women? Because I don't know if I've ever asked you that. And you
Yeah.
said that, women and men work so differently, and I see that as well. But what made you kind of like draw that line in the sand to say, I'm going to really just focus on women entrepreneurs?
A couple of things. One, I am a byproduct of that environment. So you do know a little bit of my story. My mom was a CEO of a company for 37 years, but I haven't really connected with her closely until I started working with her when I was 14 because she was missing that balance. She was an incredible business owner, but she was always out on the go, out on the limb, trying to save her business. And that balance of time was never present. So for a while, I really struggled with the idea, is it really possible as a female entrepreneur to be a mom, a sister, a partner, a friend, and do all the things? Because you see men, and then I studied a lot of psychology of male and female brain, and actually men have that compartmentability where they can put things and say, okay, this is the home box. It stays at home and I don't touch it when I'm at work. With women, we are like that laptop with 17 tabs open and we touch all the boxes at all times. And so what I started seeing is that that's kind of that difference in how males and females operate. Males are a lot more one, they can compartmentalize by nature, but they also don't have that nurture effect that women do. So they can say, okay, now I'm building my business, everybody else leave me alone. And just culturally, right, it's way more acceptable for male to step out, if you will, out of the family unit and say, okay, you hold down the fort. I'm going to be out there conquering the world, building the business. For females, it took us a while. And even now, we're still not all fully on board. And there's still a lot of kind of back and forth conversation about it. But there's not a single mom who can say to their child, hey, go sit in the closet for a couple of months, right? Mommy is going to go build the business. I'll be back. That never
Right.
worked like that. And so women's like culturally and psychologically, we carry more roles and we're so multifaceted at all times. So I do believe that was my biggest drive is one, to see if I can do it differently than my mom, actually, for the lack of better terms. I'm being super
Yeah.
candid. And two was the fact, because I also have a daughter and I really wanted to build my business around her schedule as much as possible. And then part two was to see how do we adapt this culturally and how do we plug women in into sort of a very male driven corporate culture, because a lot of the pieces in our business in general are very male driven, right? The 8 a.m. meetings, the 7 a.m. huddles, everything happens on Monday morning. Well, if you're a mom on Monday morning, you're trying to, make breakfast, make your hair, get ready, drop them off at school while you're answering the phones. So I wanted to see how we can find that balance by plugging ourselves and adapting ourselves to that very, like I said, male driven culture, but also find ability to create enough support for women where they can successfully build their business and also successfully stay present for their kids and their loved ones, essentially.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes me remember when we were in the office and we weren't all remote. And it's not to say that men aren't, either stay home dads
Sure.
or, working and
Mhm.
dropping the kids off at school, et cetera. But it does
Sure.
definitely, it lays more on the moms.
Mhm.
But I remember, I mean, for years we would have our sprint meetings and I made them later. I made them at like 8:45 and it was timed on when anyone that did have to drop off kids
Mhm.
could get to the office, get through traffic. And on Friday, and we do this to this day, even though we're all remote, we kept the same time. So it's 8:45 and 9:30 on Friday, just in case, like,
Mhm.
someone needs to have extra time to, do what they need to do before they get on. So that's totally true. I think, yeah. And hopefully nowadays we're starting to meld a little bit more, especially with remote work. People
Yes.
can have a little bit more flexibility. But yeah, I think that's so great that you focus on women and
Thank you.
yeah.
And I do think, to your point too, it is starting to blend because of a remote culture, but also we do have a lot more role distribution, right? Where we do have now a lot more stay-at-home dads. We
Yeah.
do have a lot more dual families where both parents are working. And so, yeah, all that kind of combined has been driving the changes, but we still have a very, very long road to go. So for all the women who are listening, yes, I'm with you. I hear you, I see you, and I definitely understand you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, me too. And that's why when I built my business, I'm like, I want to be there at the bus stop when my kids go to the bus, get off the bus. And I
Mhm.
don't want to do anything that I wouldn't have my team be able to do too. So it's like that was so important,
Yeah, huge. Well, it speaks a
as we're
lot to you
working
as a
moms.
leader. Speaks a lot
Yeah.
to you as a leader, Sharon. So yes, I'm
Oh,
sure your
thank
team is
you.
very appreciative of that. Most certainly.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad that you came on. Now, where can people find you if they wanted to learn more about the Business Academy or one-on-one coaching or just follow
Yeah.
you and your
Yeah,
content?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Everything is super easy. It's just like the letter I start first. Everything is under it. It's iStartFirst.com. The website is there. Everything about the Business Academy is there. We're actually enrolling for the March cohort now. And then if you follow me under my name, Olenka Cullinan, on my Instagram or my LinkedIn, those are the two places you can find me. It's me. It's not a bot answering you, even though I am a big proponent of automation, but it's going to be me. So reach out. Always happy to support. And thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And I'll put everything in the show notes so everyone can find you easily. And thanks so much for coming on, Olenka. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sharon.
Yes. And everyone have a great week. And I'll see you next week on All Things Recruiting.